Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show on a Tuesday night. What a night in the NBA. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I am very shocked at some of the outcomes these first games in the second round, but I'm doing pretty good. How's everything going over there?
It's good, man. I mean, this is what the NBA is about. The first 4 games here and an extra one with Indiana and the Cavs are just been tremendous. But let's get into it like always. I'm your host, the Game Injury Doc, and the other host on my right is Eric B. Mack, and that's what you can find us at on our handles on all social media platforms. We have the Hoops Rehab Show on YouTube, so please follow, like, subscribe, download, comment, do all those good things on there. We appreciate it. And then we also have the Apple and Spotify podcasts that will be up in the morning. As soon as this show wraps up, we like to upload that in case anybody's missing anything during the live. As always, we always ask, please comment during the show. If you're on YouTube, throw some comments up there. We like to get to your questions. We always like to get your feedback. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, do the same as well. But let's get it cracking tonight, Eric. And the first thing I wanted to get to was Tyrese Playoff Haliburton, the Mr. Overrated, as the Cavs fans were saying, won the game for the Indiana Pacers. What a comeback.
Man, the execution down the stretch of some of these games, I'm just like shocked. Like, obviously not taken away from Indiana, who's done it twice in a matter of 3 games. They obviously did it in their final game of the last series against Milwaukee in game 5. And then obviously game 2 of this one where, man, like you're just like pulling your hair out. Cause I mean, if teams are up 7-8 points with less than a minute to go, I mean, you're looking at some daunting like statistics in terms of being able to come back or blow a game where you're like 99.9% chance you're going to win. And I was just like, I mean, they were throwing the ball away. They were obviously Indiana missed a free throw at the end there. They got an offensive rebound. And once he got that offensive rebound, you just knew Indiana was going to hit a 3. And of course it was Mr. Haliburton. And it's just, I mean, this is the first time ever that in the second round or conference finals that the road team has won game 1 of every game. And that in itself is insane. But yeah, man, we got to start giving Indiana some props because they're just, they don't give up. They're playing really, really good basketball. And so, Cleveland's in a tough spot. They got to feel like pretty bad right now.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I watched the end of the game and, you know, everything's going on, right? Donovan's got like 48. He's dominating. I'm like, all right, he's basically put the Cavs on his back. They're up 7 with a minute to go. I'm like, nothing could go wrong. Then you see Donovan on the ground. Like, he looks like he's injured. I'm like, is he out? I'm about to tweet something. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Let me check the video. And then all of a sudden, next play, he elbows, you know, and then hits his knee and he's down again. And then they're calling a flagrant, right? Or they're reviewing it at least. And then you're like, wait, what is going on? Right. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is a 3-point game. It's getting that close. And then playoff Haliburton just goes and just crushes the Cavs' dreams and brings out the Sam Cassell. I don't know if we saw the Sam Cassell at the end. The big cojones.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that.
And so I'm just like, you know, in general, just I don't like any more. Like, the best story in the NBA is when somebody's doubted, and like, he's a young dude, right? And like, all of a sudden he's been getting these overrated chants. What did he go down as he was the number 1 player that players thought he was overrated too? Like, I think that was all players, right? So then you got that. So players think he's overrated. He had a
Rudy Gobert too was up there, but
that's typical for Rudy. And then he had a Olympic like showing of just like, I don't know, did Haliburton regress? Like, what was going on in the Olympics? He just didn't play. You're going to get that when you have like everybody's a stacked team and a bunch of all-stars. But dude has been proving in the playoffs since last season that he's legit. The Pacers are legit. Everybody's pounding them. And I told you, what did I say in this series? I had the Cavs originally losing in the second round, and Indiana is by far on their way. I mean, albeit the injuries from the Cavs are just devastating.
Yeah.
You got Garland out. I mean, going into the game, I was like, good luck, Cavs, right? You had three of their top 5 players out. And that's a recipe for a loss. But, obviously Donovan Mitchell tried to put it on his back, but just couldn't get it done at the end.
Yeah, like I was, kind of taking notes and things, obviously, for the show tonight. And I was just about to kind of talk about how no matter, obviously Cavs had 3 key guys out, but sometimes superstars just got to put their team on their shoulders and get a W. And I was kind of really getting ready to start on a kind of a Donovan Mitchell rant. Mm-hmm. And so he obviously had 48 points. I mean, he still had an amazing game. But it's now obviously a little bit overshadowed because they lost, and obviously Haliburton hit the big shot. And so, yeah, I mean, they had to win that game. They obviously were up the whole game and they should have won it, but just going forward, I mean, I was watching it, I'm like, really, like these guys, like just looking at who they had out there, I'm like, they are not going to be able to kind of hang even with Indiana, let alone Boston potentially in the next round. And so, yeah, you lose your first 2 games at home. It's pretty much a wrap.
Yeah. Man, you hope they get a little healthy for game 3, and they're still the home team in this, but the road team has won 2 games, and so now that just gives Indiana just essentially they just need to split at home, and they're up 3-1 and can probably close it out like in a game 6. Because you got to give the Cavs probably some credit, unless those players aren't playing in the next game. I mean, I'm not too confident in Garland playing, and I'm not too confident in Hunter really being effective since he dislocated his thumb. It's going to affect his shooting, it's going to affect his ball handling, going to affect his defense. The only person I would say maybe that probably has a possibility to get back and play all right is probably Evan Mobley, but we don't really know the severity of his ankle sprain yet. So I just don't see them winning 2 in Indiana at this point, not being healthy and banged up. What do you see when they get back to Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Cleveland's got to kind of have the mindset probably is like win game 3, win 1, and then you obviously want to get 2, but worst case, a win 1, and then you got game 5 at home. Maybe you get that one, and then it's kind of it's a series. But when players start missing playoff games, that it is a serious injury, and not only playoff games, but a game 2 after losing game 1 at home, where you knew that this was like the most important game of the season. Obviously, sure. When you lose game 1 at home, you gotta win game 2, and to even most likely have a chance, because obviously we know Indiana is going to be rocking. They have the mindset of like, hey, let's sweep this team. But you know what? Same with them. If they get one of the 2, they're going to be in control. So I think it's I was riding high on Cleveland. I was going to ride them all the way to the finals, and here we are. I'm already kind of giving up on them, and I think Indiana's going to make another trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, I'm obviously not going out on a limb, but that's what I kind of ultimately see happening now.
One second. I'm trying to get here. Can't hear you right now. So 1 second here.
Oh, we got some technical difficulties. Okay, but anyways, you can go on, Doc.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but let me get my thing connected here. My fault, everybody.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys could maybe in the comments let me know if you guys could hear me, but I'll just keep on.
Hold on 1 second here.
What is Cam saying? Nuggets will be the team. Oh, okay, we'll definitely get to the Nuggets, but
yeah. All right, I'm back. Sorry.
All right. You hear me now, Doc?
And hearing you.
You hear me now?
Well, tell me what you were saying a little bit right there.
I mean, basically, like, obviously I was kind of high on the Cavs, and we got all sorts of stuff going on. Hold on, let me see. Hopefully it's yeah, my mic seems to be working, but no, guys, but yeah, so I think going forward, the Cavs are gonna probably. I mean, those injuries are just brutal, and I think it was going to be tough. It was going to be a tough series regardless. And then without, your guys like obviously Mobley, Hunter, it's going to be tough sledding. And Indiana, like one side of me is like, do I really want to see Indiana potentially Boston again? I mean, we could see the same result as next round. As last year, but I feel like maybe Indiana. Even though they have like the same personnel, I'm hoping it would be a better series. But shoot, I guess I shouldn't even be counting out the Knicks yet, because I know we're obviously once we get up and running here, we'll no luck, Doc. The Doc was giving us some great insight too on some of the injuries, and obviously Steph Curry. Obviously, that's going to be a big one. But I guess let me just kind of wrap up Indiana. Obviously, me personally, I was totally wrong about the first two series in the West. I mean, when you have two teams like Denver and Golden State that played a tough 7-game series and then just 2 days later start their first round, I just really expected the two home teams, OKC and Minnesota, just to win quite easily, to be honest. It's just really what I saw. And I guess it was the exact opposite. So there was a little bit of rust factor, I guess, maybe for Minnesota, because Golden State really, really took it to them. On the flip side, with Denver and OKC really controlled the game. And I know later on, if we can get this in order, we're going to, discuss that. But
yeah, I got you. I'm back.
You got me? Cool.
I can hear you. I just had some difficulty with my volume from hearing you. I think you all could hear me, but my apologies. Couldn't
we'll
really
have to listen in to see if I hope everybody could hear me, or else they just see me like mouthing stuff.
No, I'm pretty sure they can hear you. I just can't hear me.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
But yeah, sorry about that. Technical difficulties a little bit. But yeah, were you as far as Indiana Cavs, what were you saying there?
I was kind of like putting a bow on that because I was going off on it, or kind of talking, but basically I was just saying with Indiana, I was a little bit like high on Cleveland getting to the finals. And so I must say I'm not going on a limb, but I think obviously I think Indiana, it's their series now. We did see them last year in the conference finals, and my point was I just hope we have a better conference finals with Boston. Also I mentioned that, it's the same personnel. So we'll see if it's any different, but I feel like Indiana, just something about them, they're playing definitely better basketball as opposed to last year, where they really, really benefit from injuries, which again, they are this year. So yeah, that's kind of what we were just discussing with this sports rehab fam out there.
Yeah, they definitely have benefited from the injuries in the past 2 seasons, right? So, but then again, that's what happens. I mean, we can make all those excuses for like how we made the excuses for Celtics last year for them winning a championship and having to go through all these teams in the East that weren't really stacked because of the injuries. They never played a Knicks team because of the injuries, and so I think some of that was just bad luck. But at the same time, you got to play who's in front of you, and so I think Indiana is doing just that. And so far looking amazing.
Yeah, man, they are. I mean, other than that complete meltdown from Cleveland, which I know we'll get into another meltdown a little bit later in the show with OKC and Denver.
That's for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Indiana's looking good, and I mean, if you win your first 2 games on the road, you are in an amazing spot.
All right. So let's get to our next segment, which is probably the most important segment tonight. It's the Something Happened Today segment, where we talk about injuries around the league, obviously around the NBA playoffs. And the worst thing could happen tonight, I would say, worst thing for the Warriors was them losing Steph Curry despite losing Steph Curry, they still got the win. But during the first half, it was interesting because I went back and looked at the play to see like if it was anything that he did to strain the hamstring, and he had a couple step backs and made a three, and then immediately went down on defense. He was even celebrating with the Warriors bench a little bit, and then all of a sudden he started moving, and like all of a sudden he just like kind of grabs his hamstring, like, ooh, that doesn't feel that good. Kind of does it again, doesn't feel that good, gets a rebound, starts dribbling up the court, and he's still kind of like grabbing at it. You could tell he's not moving correctly. Gives the ball off, kind of comes back, gets the ball, makes a runner. So he still makes a jumper after that, but then you can tell he's hobbling all the way back down. He's signaling to the bench to kind of come out. And then next play, he has to go back on offense again. He kind of just stays in the corner. So you knew immediately right there was something serious. And obviously he did not come back in the game, right? And so at that point, I was just looking at like, is that more tightness versus strain based on there wasn't a significant play that set it off? So I think that is a positive, for being, when you look at severities of hamstring strains, like a grade 1 versus a grade 2, a grade 1 would be like the minimal tearing of the hamstring, and a grade 2 would be a partial tear. I don't think it's a grade 2. I mean, just based on how he was reacting. Usually there's some sort of big deceleration on a step that you just feel a hamstring pop and pull. That didn't look like it. He looked like he was just grabbing at it, felt a little tight. So I would say he's going to get an MRI tomorrow. They listed him as day-to-day. However, the big thing about the MRI was just determine the severity. Now, the hope would be that it's more tightness and there's no strain. And the MRI shows no strain, even though they diagnosed it with that already, just based on what the reporters reported.
Right.
That would be the hope. You see the MRI, there's no strain, and he's day-to-day. Right? Or if they see a grade 1, that the typical healing time for a grade 1 is about 1 to 2 weeks. So either way, I think he is in line to miss the next couple games, right? So right now they currently play every other day up until after game 5 is when they kind of get a big break between game 6 and 7. So the hope would be that the MRI does not show a grade or a strain. It just kind of it essentially would become like tightness. And then he would just need some time to heal. And you don't want to rush back because you can always make it worse. Either way, at this point, there's been some sort of injury to the hamstring, which can be made worse by playing. Right. So, man, I'm trying to be optimistic about it, but with the Warriors winning, that was the best thing they could have done.
Yep.
Right. Because that's going to help him get some rest. And the hope would be to treat it 24/7 and then get him back for the second half of the series if it goes that long. Like if you had to go to a game 5, 6, or 7. What do you say, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the play, didn't see exactly like you mentioned, like where it happened, but I saw him like hit a couple of shots and he pointed at the bench. And so when a guy takes himself out, we know something's not right. And he obviously went to the locker room, and regardless of how big the game was, he wasn't good enough to return. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a bit of concern. I think, like you said, them winning game 1, I would almost guarantee he doesn't play game 2. And then we'll see about games 3, 4, 5. And so, yeah, it's bittersweet, especially if he does have to miss a few games, because let's be honest, like that could be the series. I know they ended up winning today, but I guarantee you as the series goes on, I think Minnesota, who was awful today, but I think their talent will show up, and it'll catch up to them if Curry's not in ultimately. And so I think they're a little bit on a high today, coming off of game 7. While you're kind of were getting situated, I was talking to everybody about how I was completely wrong. I thought the 2 game 7 winners were going to really struggle in game 1. I thought there was going to be 2 rested teams that were going to probably come and win the games pretty easy, but it was the exact opposite. It was 2 teams that maybe were still kind of like on a high, right? Against, there's always that rest versus rust question. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, Minnesota didn't play well game 5 against the Lakers. I mean, Lakers were just, I don't even want to talk about them anymore, but they just, I mean, they're destined to lose that series. So it was a little bit of a carryover, honestly, from that game. And so I think it is a little bit of a concern. I'm like, I don't even know what Minnesota team I'm watching out there, but yeah, in terms of like, obviously something happened today. We'll be interested to see what the severity is of it, because it is a game-changing injury, and they obviously need Curry to, I believe, win the series, and definitely moving forward beyond this round against Minnesota.
Yeah, I will say one thing for the Warriors: they are a deep team, and we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. As far as they can go 11 in a game, and it's in the playoffs. And typically when you think about playoffs, you're playing like that 8-9 man rotation. I mean, they have a guy like Kuminga that like barely plays most games because they're stacked, right? And they can't fit him in there. So you at least can fall back on that, especially with just having the talent like Jimmy Butler. I mean, if they didn't have Jimmy Butler, this would be just a totally different team. And I don't even think they would be in the situation that they're in. And so I think now that they're able to fall back on a player like Jimmy who can take over a game, and you still have, the Pozinskis, you have Draymond, obviously. So you do have a lot of talent that you can choose from. And even having Peyton off the bench, right? That you can get minutes from, you can get defensive minutes from players like that is going to be huge for them moving forward.
Man, it's so it's so untraditional or non-traditional. I mean, we know it. We always talk about it. Playoffs, that bench. You said 8-9 players. That's probably like on the high end. A lot of times it's 7 players, 7 guys, and so. Yeah, this is like out of the norm where you got 11, maybe even 12 guys that play. And so
for sure.
Yeah, man, it takes like a good coach like Steve Kerr to be able to orchestrate it and kind of plug in the right players at the right time. Because not any coach would be able to do the things that he's doing in these playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that. I'll be tweeting out some stuff tomorrow, I'm sure, when you find out. And then also we'll have the pod up, and if we need to come on to kind of talk about it, we will. We'll keep you updated throughout any news that happens with Curry. Then now, I've talked about it in the previous show, but I wanted to kind of get into the Cavs players because that's obviously a huge concern for the Cavs moving forward. They have 3 players that were out today: Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter. Right. So we're looking at, when we think about Darius Garland, he has a big toe sprain, and we all know that he missed game 4 in the first round, missed game 1 and 2 so far. And from what all the reports are, that it's pretty significant, and it would be a type of injury that he would be out multiple weeks. So that's the concerning thing, because at this point they're down 0-2 going back to Indiana. They don't have much rest in between games. And there's not a whole lot you can do for the sprain. Like, you are trying to treat it as best you can to get him to be out of pain. There are some modifications it can do in the shoe, which will get less like you can get it to like, so it's not extending as much, right? So you can get some comfort in the shoe, so he's not in as much pain. But even that is his explosiveness or just ability to like move quickly, especially on offense or defense, will be diminished, even if he returns for game 3 or 4. And it's still not really in the cards, or we haven't heard like there's a positive that he will be back in game 3. So I'm not too optimistic with Garland right now in this series, especially with them being down 2-0.
Yeah, Garland, I know we talked about the other night, with the toe injury, like similar to like football players with turf toe. Whenever you hear those injuries, like especially during like the regular season, you feel like, oh, they just have it all season long. And to really think that he's going to just all of a sudden come back and be like even close to what he can be, it's naive. And so, yeah, man, it sucks. It's like you really, that teams are going to win or lose, right? Obviously, there's always a winner, there's always a loser. Mm-hmm. but you just always hope that most teams are healthy, and it's brutal right now for some of these ball clubs because this is game changing. I mean, there's 3 guys that the Cavs have out who are big contributors to this ball club, and yeah, man, it's tough to see.
Yeah, you don't want to see it, especially this time in the playoffs, but that's what happens. I mean, with the physicality in the playoffs, and there's certain things and injuries that happen, and the crazy thing is those players will try their hardest to play. So don't doubt if some of these guys get back earlier than they should be, because if it was a regular season, they would not be back that fast. So when I give you guys like timeline of healing, that's just a normal timeline, right? In the NBA, in the playoffs, you got to up that. They usually try to get back a lot faster, which is it's great for your team, but at the same a risk for them because they can get further injuries, right? In particular with the hamstring, it's always in the back of my mind when I think of players with hamstring strains that try to come back early, is that the hamstring is the second protector for the ACL. There are some fibers that kind of attach into there, and it acts as a protector for the ACL, right? So when you have a strain and you're weaker in that muscle, you're more susceptible to an ACL injury in the knee. So that's why I always worry, like when players kind of come back too early. I hate to give this example, but Klay Thompson in the finals, right? He had a hamstring strain, and he tried to get it out and come back. And obviously he tore his ACL in the finals. And you never want to see that. It's just more the reality of when there's a tissue that's injured that can lead to further injuries down the road, right? So we kind of talked about that with Dame when he came back, right? So it was like, yes, he's coming back from DVT, which is something that's totally different, but he wasn't conditioned. And, a couple games later, he tears his Achilles, which he had a previous issue from last year's playoffs. So you already had some degeneration there. Then you team it up with him not doing any cardio, him not doing much for about a month because of his DVT, and then he comes back. So there's just always that risk. Yeah. I mean, and that's what they sign up for. That's what they play for, and they're willing to take that risk.
Yeah, that's great insight. Yeah, I for me, and I know probably a lot of people didn't realize that that it's kind of a protector of the ACL, and so I think you've always been a proponent of like one injury could always lead to another because you kind of favor that injury and you maybe move a little different than you normally would. And in kind of going back to a guy like Steph Curry, I mean, his movement without the ball is so big for him. And he's like, you might think like, oh, he's a 3-point shooter. He could just kind of sit behind the three-point line, but he's so much more than that. He's not a stationary player at all. And so, obviously I know we're talking about the other guys, but yeah, with Curry, he's going to have to really, really be cautious, especially with everything you just told us right now, because that's pretty scary.
Yeah, for sure. And then you get back to the last 2 Cavs players. We got Evan Mobley, who has an ankle sprain. They haven't really talked about the severity of it. Out of those 3 players, I see him likely getting back faster than anybody else. It's something that at least you can put a brace on or a tape, and you kind of got to play through the pain. DeAndre Hunter, I'm a little worried about because he dislocated his right thumb. So that's his shooting thumb. That's his hand, when he's dribbling, he's playing defense. Anytime he gets banged up, it's going to be just super painful. So he'll have a significant wrap on that if he comes back or returns in this series. So either way, when they do return, they are going to be limited in a fashion, and it doesn't look encouraging for the Cavs at this point, being down 0-2.
Yeah, no, I think if they had everybody come back, it would be tough. And knowing that most are not going to come back and are not maybe even close to 100%. Mm-hmm. Like we've kind of been mentioning this all show, it's not looking good for Cleveland.
Yep. All right. So to get into the next topic, we wanted to talk about the Warriors win, right? And despite losing Curry, what do you see with the Warriors tonight? I mean, to me, I was obviously super impressed by their defense and to be able to shut out basically Minnesota and hold them to the points that they held them to.
I think it was a couple of things. It reminded me of like a Jimmy Butler dragging like a not so great Miami Heat team to the finals, right? No offense to some of the other guys on the team, but let's be honest, that's kind of how it was. And so it reminded me of that. And he had obviously a good statistical game, like nothing like crazy that stands like amazingly out. But when you scored 99 points and 24 of them were you, it is actually pretty good. And just his just calmness and obviously his defensive efforts. So I know there's a lot of things that they did well, but I wanted to start there because he was like, if I think we said it earlier in the show, if they didn't have him and Curry went out, like I think it would have been night. And then Buddy Hield, man, he had a huge game 7. He carried that over to this game. I think he's hot right now, and they're going to ride that wave with him shooting the 3 ball. And then to your point, I think Warriors, like teams in the past, we always thought about like high octane offense, but they've really kind of turned the page with that, and they really do well defensively. And that showed tonight too. And I'll be honest, Minnesota didn't play very well. Missed a bunch of shots they probably normally make, and so I mean it was an impressive win. I thought for sure Minnesota was going to win tonight. Like I mentioned earlier with Golden State, I would have assumed been really tired heading into this game. But man, it was a total team effort. What did you see out there?
Yeah, I mean defensively they were just shutting them out in the first half. Right. I mean, Anthony Edwards would put, like at one point he was 0 for 10, right? Had like 1 point in the first half. And obviously kind of turned it on in the second half and kind of got his footing in third and fourth quarter. But their size did not make a difference for the Warriors. And that's something that we talked a lot about with the Lakers. And it's like, their size. The Warriors aren't big. They started Draymond Green. He's 6'6", and it didn't make a difference with Gobert and all their length and all that stuff. So the Warriors are the team that knows how to play small ball. No other team knows how to do it. I know there's a lot of teams that try to replicate that. The Warriors with Draymond at the center position are just different. And no matter how much you think you got a Draymond, and you got somebody at that center position that can play small ball, there's nobody like Draymond at the 5. And he's proven every season, night after night. Obviously, if you look at his stats, are never going to tell you what he's done as an NBA player. When he goes into the Hall of Fame and we go, Draymond average, I mean, what's he at? 9 points a game, 6 and 6 or whatever, it's 9, 7, 7 or whatever he'll be for his career. You're going to be like, in 20 years, you'll have people saying, Draymond was not that good because they didn't watch the games live or they didn't watch the games in that era. But what he does defensively and offensively, controlling the team almost like a point forward too, will always be significant for the Warriors.
Yeah, he's averaging 8.7 points for his career, so not even 9.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be like
I had to look that up, but
you're going to be like, is Draymond a Hall of Famer? Because people will just look at his stats. I mean, you can't look at that. Like he's a total different player. A la maybe Ben Wallace, right? Where you just know he wasn't going to score, but when you watch Ben Wallace, you knew he was a bona fide Hall of Famer, right? And Draymond is that guy. And offensively, he had a great game tonight. He had 18, right? If you get 18 out of Draymond, that's icing on the cake. So I think the Warriors, like I said last show, to me, they are the favorites to win it all. And I do think they will become the third team that's not a top 3 seed in the NBA to win a championship.
Your prediction is looking a lot better right now, but with Curry out,
yeah.
I think Minnesota is going to win the next couple of games,
and
I think that could change the whole series around.
Yeah.
So that's a factor, obviously.
Yeah, when obviously I said that was with Curry healthy, so it does throw a wrench in it. But I'm like, when a team loses, like say if the Lakers lost LeBron or somebody loses their best player, Boston loses Tatum. with the Warriors, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you lost Steph, but you have Jimmy Butler. Like you're like, cool. I got Jimmy, I got Draymond, you got Buddy Hield who's playing well. So I think you have some players that will make a significant difference in the series. But yeah, I expect Minnesota to come out in game 2, ready to take that game and make it a 1-1 series. So we'll see. I mean, the second round has been crazy with all the teams, like with the road teams winning. So we'll see what the home teams really respond with. Obviously, the Cavs did not respond well tonight, but you got to chalk up some of that to the injuries that they're having.
Yeah, and lastly, I mean, to your point with the small ball, like kind of going back to the Lakers when we were thinking about like, oh, what opponent do we want them to have? The worry about playing the Warriors was Lakers are going to play small, but they're playing a team that just dominates small ball. And so, yeah, I mean, the show tonight, like Gobert hadn't like not nearly the impact he had in game 5 against the Lakers. Granted, he was not that impactful in all the games. But yeah, man, as long as Curry is healthy, I think you got to put him up there with any of the other top teams to have a really good shot of winning the damn thing. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so let's get into yesterday's games, which were obviously amazing games, probably the best games so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, man.
But let's hash out that Denver OKC ending, because if I'm not mistaken, OKC was coaching like they were in high school at the end of the game. Or maybe I'll give them college, but fouling that many times when you're up, right? Because you don't want to give up a 3. That's fine if you really want to make that decision. However, you should let the clock run out sometimes before you foul, because that's usually what you do if you're going to foul a player from not shooting a 3. Don't foul them 90 feet from the basket. What do you say, Eric?
Yeah. I got to just break this down real quick. So first off, obviously an amazing comeback from Denver. I mean, OKC, they got to be kicking themselves because they should have won this game going away, right? And so you got to give Denver credit. They crawled back. But those last 13, 14 seconds were just incredible. So basically, there's 3 things that I saw. So obviously, they were up 3. They foul Jokic. They foul a pretty damn good free throw shooter. Because, like, I must say, before I mention this, I am for the foul game there in some circumstances.
Are you?
But I also do see when a coach doesn't do it, the fear of fouling, and then that player shoots a 3, right, and they get an and 1 or something. So I do understand that. But they foul Jokic literally like a second into the clock. They don't kind of try to defend him. They don't maybe try to have him give it up to maybe someone that's not as good of a foul shooter, like a Westbrook. I believe he was out there at the time. And great. So you foul him. Cool. He makes the 2 free throws. The next play, SGA basically, they almost, there's kind of a miscommunication with Denver. And I feel like he could have probably like taken the ball. He went right to the basket and scored. I get it. You don't want to get fouled. You rather take the bucket than have to hit 2 free throws. But I feel there was an opportunity there to maybe kind of kill a few seconds off the clock. But for that, I'll give it to them. And then the next play, I mean, you have Joker out of the game because he had 5 fouls. So he has 5 fouls. You don't want him to pick up a cheap foul. I get Denver's philosophy. In case it goes to overtime, we don't want him to pick up a cheap foul. So you know the Joker is out the game, and you foul right away again. And to the credit of Denver, obviously, if they miss one of those 4 free throws with Aaron Gordon and Jokic, then we're probably singing a different tune. Yeah. But you just gave him such a great opportunity. Again, not much seconds off the clock, right? Aaron Gordon, again, to his credit, he makes it 2 free throws. And then you got, obviously, they foul Oklahoma City. And, I mean, let's be honest, right? It was a Chet. He was getting worked all game long by the Joker.
What did I say was going to happen? I said Joker is going to have one of those series where he completely dominates, and not having somebody like Zubac who not shut down the Joker, but limited him to less points that he would normally have in a series, but he still averaged a triple-double. So I just thought he was going to go off this series. But I agree with you, though. Like, my thing is, if you're up 3, right, and they don't want them to get a 3 to tie. So the worst-case scenario is you tie the game, and you have the ball with the last possession. That's the ultimate worst-case scenario that can happen when you try this fouling strategy. Is that a terrible scenario? Worst case is we are going to have the ball on the last possession to try to win the game, right? Or do you risk your team that has all the pressure now to make the free throws, which they did fine for a couple rounds of that, and then Chet goes and misses 2 free throws, and then you're like, shit, we're down by 1 now. So a layup wins the game, and then you see Russell Westbrook get the ball, and you're like, oh no, oh Lord have mercy, what's going to happen? And he makes the right play, passes directly to Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon goes, I got this again, and drains a 3. So my thing is, like, you risk your team falling under pressure from trying to make clutch free throws. You're not going to make every free throw, right? So if you they fouled at least 4 times in that scenario. It seemed like they just went forever. So I just thought it was unnecessary, and I think teams just try to think too much without just playing basketball.
Yeah, they're like kind of outthinking themselves, and I'm like a proponent for like the math strategy, right? Like,
nope,
if it,
no
like,
analytics for me.
You're against it. I think it's just the way they did it. If it was like 4 seconds and then you foul, it's different. But
when did they start? It wasn't 4 seconds. It was like when they had about like 20 seconds or something. Somewhere around there,
they went wrong. It was a little lower, but it was terrible. Like, if you're gonna do that and that's the way, that's your philosophy, fine. But it was executed poorly. That's for sure.
For sure. So that was couldn't get any worse for the OKC Thunder, who had. Go ahead.
So, and I gotta say one more thing. Like, this happened in the Indiana game, and this one, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I think teams are like, when someone's up by 7 or 8, 5 or 6 points, I think teams are so worried about the 3-pointer, which granted, I get it. They give up 2-pointers in like a matter of like a layup in like 2 seconds. Like, you'll be up 5 with 40 seconds left. They'll get a 2-pointer and it's 37 seconds left. I mean, that's something that teams got to watch out for too. Yeah,
they almost start playing that prevent defense, and they just guard the perimeter and let everybody pass them, and then they get to the rim all easy and get an open layup. So it's just not sustainable for a team. It's not sustainable for a series to play that way. But OKC will learn a lesson, and let's see what they're made of in game 2. Because again, I did have Denver winning the series. I'm not going to say all my predictions are going to be right for the second round, but I had a lot of these kind of, I would say, championship teams like Denver, Warriors, right? I felt like those 2 teams were championship material. So I wanted to see what the young guys would do.
Yeah, I'm ready to say definitely Denver, OKC. I see it going 7, no doubt.
Yep. All right, so the last game of yesterday, obviously, the Knicks and the Celtics, which to me was the biggest surprise of all the games, especially with what the media was saying with Boston, which nobody was really giving the Knicks credit. I'm not saying I was, but I told you Brunson will at least get 2 games in this series. I thought he would at least be good for 2, so at least go 6. I like the fight I saw in the Knicks in the second half, especially with being down 16 at halftime, and then being able to turn that game around and really just put some clamps on defense at the end of that, especially when Bridges basically took the ball away from Jaylen Brown and did not even let him get a shot off. I mean, put the clamps on him. And I thought, just like overall down the stretch, I mean, you can dive into Boston missing 45 threes, right? That's an extreme amount. That was totally ridiculous that they took that many threes to miss 45. So that's another subject to talk about because they love to take three. They take a lot of them. And you're going to live and die by the three. Obviously, we talk about that. But I just thought the Knicks overall played like a team that wanted it more. And we'll see what happens in game 2. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Boston was up 20 in the third, and I mean, it could be a one-off, but Knicks had, I think it was important for them to get the win, and you talked about that or a couple shows ago, and it was big. I mean, Boston, I can't say much because they obviously won the championship last year, but they shot 63 pointers, 6-0. Like, at what point do you say, shoot, like they're coming back, they made a run on us, let's try something a little different. I mean, it's just funny because they missed 45 threes, but they made 15. So 15. Like, I know. If you in any game, you'll take 15 3-pointers made, like any game, right? You obviously when you get like the 20 to 22, it's like, damn, we made a lot of 3-pointers, but you'll take 15. And so maybe that's their philosophy where they got their 15. They were in the game, obviously. They had a chance to win it, all that stuff. But yeah, man, like, it was cool to see. Like, I'm glad we're gonna get a good series, and I feel like we are now. And so that's all we can ask for. Boston has just been kind of running through the league the last couple seasons, and I know those New Yorkers are pumped. I'm sure Cam. I know he's a Nuggets fan, but I'm sure Cam could out of New York could let us know probably how crazy it is because I know how those fans get. And so. Yeah, man. I just hope New York is hungry game 2. I really doubt they're going to win it, but I just hope that they are not really settling for one game or greedy. That would be nice to see. But yeah, dude, like, again, I was kind of doubting their defense a little bit, but I mean, they showed out, and the killer Brunson, he's a baller, man. I was saying it. I figured he was going to be the one that lead him past Detroit, and you said he's going to be the one that potentially could lead him past Boston, and he's doing his thing for sure.
Yeah, I just felt like something clicked for the Knicks and at the Pistons series, like because it was such a hard fought series for them. Like, I felt like Pistons team was just a great team for them to go against because they're going to bring that physicality and get the most out of New York. And I felt like when they got into that game 6 and they beat him in Detroit, right? And they brought that defensive tenacity, which has been lacking throughout the regular season. I thought that was a difference maker going into this game 1, and they still kind of brought that, right? Obviously, they have players that can defend, like OG and McHale and Mitchell Robinson and Hart. Right, all 4 of those guys can really defend. I think Brunson does a good job for his size. Like, I think he's a good defender for his size and everything. You can see even they keep showing that highlight of him on Tatum, and he was staying with him every step of the way and forcing him to a bad shot. So I don't see him as a liability. I mean, Cat is probably the only where some of the physicality and some. He's a little slow a little bit on defense, but he's still a big body, right? And I think they definitely have what it takes to win this series. I just want to see what they're made out of in game 2 and when they get back to New York. Cool.
Sorry, I'm trying to jump on my phone and
yeah.
Whoops, you guys got me.
We got some technical difficulties today, but we're all good. Man,
I really appreciate it. The show we got 1,300 of you out there. That's amazing. And the one time we got some problems, but hey, I do see that Julian out there had a question. I don't know if you see that. Yeah.
So just join the show.
We see you. I know, my man. You're always hollering at us. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Just join in. What is the timeline with Curry? So we went over this earlier, but he will have an MRI tomorrow, which will determine the severity of the injury. And when you think of a hamstring strain, typically it just depends on what grade it is, right? So if he has a grade 1 strain, that's typically about a 1 to 2 weeks to 7 to 10 days healing time frame. Now, in the playoffs, that is kind of upped and for good and bad, right? So they will try everything they can to try to get somebody back early, but doesn't mean it's a good thing because they can aggravate the hamstring very easily, right? So the hope would be going into the MRI that he either has it shows no strain, which would be a miracle and lucky, and he's more day to day, and it's more like a tightness thing. I still would expect him, even that if that's the case, I would expect him to miss game 2 and possibly another game or two, just to make sure that thing is healed so he doesn't aggravate it anymore. I also was talking about it in the show before that I felt that it wasn't necessarily a typical hamstring strain where you see him make a stop and you see him decelerate and you can see the hamstring kind of pull and he immediately grabs it. On this play, he literally made a couple dribbles, shot a fadeaway 3, made it, jogged back on defense, was kind of talking to the bench, like happy, celebrating. Then all of a sudden, a couple steps later, he feels something in his hamstring. And you can see that the next possession, he's kind of grabbing at his hamstring. He even makes a runner, still looks like he's hobbling. Has to hobble on defense, gets to another offensive possession where he stays on the sideline, and he's still feeling and grabbing his hamstring. So that almost looked like it was tightness, or just more of where he felt it immediately and he was like, I'm out of here because I don't want it to get worse. So to me, those are good signs as far as the severity. I don't think it's like a grade 2 strain, which would be a partial tear. And that would probably put him out a couple weeks at least. So I'm optimistic that it's on the lower end and hoping he's more day to day and grade 1-ish type of strain. But I still expect him to miss some games in this series. And the reality is, even if it is a grade 1 strain, that's more than likely putting him out 1 to 2 weeks. And if there was a game 7, the game 7 would be in 2 weeks from this day. So I see him at least missing a couple of games. I wouldn't doubt there's any difference from that.
Sorry, guys, man, it's been rough. You hear me and see me, Doc?
Yeah, I got you. I got you loud and clear.
Man, sorry about that. I really appreciate y'all being on too, man. It's been,
it's funny because we haven't really had any technical difficulties with our show so far, but tonight we're bearing through it, and we appreciate you all out there. We're trying to give some informative information on injuries, and then also just talking NBA playoffs and getting into it. We got our boy Cam Miller. I'll put him on here. What do you say? Nuggets will be that team that rolls. No injuries. I got you, Cam. I got him going to the next round. So I do like the Nuggets in this series. I know you're a Nugget believer, even though you're from New York. So one day you're going to have to tell us that story, why you're a Nuggets fan. And for you, Eric, I was talking about the Steph Curry injury, but
yes, sir.
Do we feel like it's going to change the outcome of the series with Steph Curry? Like, is it to, because we talked about this earlier, but do you feel that if Steph Curry had to miss this series, could the Warriors win it?
I mean, I guess they could, because like, it would be silly for me to say no, because they obviously won tonight. But I think I mentioned earlier, I think as the series goes on, it'll catch up to them. I think some of the depth and some of the strengths from Minnesota will take a toll, and ultimately have Minnesota the victor. I just think that, it's Steph, right? And there's going to be those games where they're going to need like a big play, a big 3-pointer, a sequence of like 3 or 4 threes, right? We know that gets the crowd rocking in San Francisco. And so if you told me right now Steph Curry is missing the rest of this series, I would definitely double down on Minnesota. Just because, who wouldn't, right? You're missing your star player. And so I think it's game changing, because if he misses let's say he misses the next 2 or 3, and Minnesota wins those games, then obviously they're in trouble. And so I don't think it would be I don't think they'd roll over, and I think it would be tough games. But I think as the series progresses, like, you'd see where Minnesota just kind of gets the best out of them, by the time we get to game 5, 6, or 7. What about you? What are your thoughts if this is the whole thing?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I feel like this is the only team that can be down a star. I know Steph is he's the engine that gets his team rolling.
Absolutely.
But having Jimmy Butler, to me, is the factor that will still win in the series, even if Steph had to sit these next 2 weeks. I think they can still get by. It's going to be tough sledding because I do think Minnesota's going to come out all guns blazing in game 2 and try to get that game, obviously. But I do still think they have a chance in this series.
Yeah, like I think there's a difference between like a player exiting during the game versus they're not going to play in terms of game plan and all that. And so I think that's where the difference will be. But yeah, man, like like you said, Warriors are one of these teams that they're coached up, they're deep. They play a style where like, you play so many guys that maybe 2 of them get hot. And
for sure,
that's what you need. So I hope he comes back. I want to see like mano to mano, right? Like who is the better team. And so yeah, man, like
The only concern for me is that this is a soft tissue injury, so it's not like you can put a brace on it. So the hardest thing is like if you hear somebody has a calf strain, a hamstring strain, because it's not going to be like, hey, I'm gonna miss a game and be back, right? It's usually like, I'm gonna miss a couple games because I got to get this thing to heal so I actually can be back. And so you hope for the best. I hope it's pretty minor to me, and it did look minor. So I'm hoping to hear some good news in his MRI tomorrow.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's most likely not a grade 2. Catastrophic, obviously. And so, yeah, I mean, they're gonna I would imagine they're for sure gonna play it safe, especially after getting game 1. And so, yeah, man, I know it's gonna be crazy. Like all these series are very much toss ups, and this is really what you want. I mean, this is what the NBA wants. This is what Adam Silver wants. Is like is series where it's like you think what's gonna happen, and then the complete opposite happens, and you're like, damn, like buckle up. What do they say? So a series starts when the road team wins, and
they all won.
They all won. So the series has started. So
yeah, I do think that all these series are going at least 6. Like I don't see the Cavs folding completely and not winning any games in Indiana. I would be completely shocked if Indiana just swept them. So I at least see all these series kind of going 6, probably 6 or 7. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great next week or 2 in the second round here. And then I see that we found out the reason why Cam Miller is a Nuggets fan.
Oh, nice.
My sister is the Nuggets and Avalanche's attorney. All right.
Okay.
Holla at your sister. That's a pretty cool job there. So I see why you're a fan.
Well, I know they have the same owner. He also owns the
Rams. Yep.
So the Rams, the Avalanche, and the Nuggets. So
yep. Stan Kroenke. But yeah, this was a good show. We appreciate all you guys tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us with a couple of our technical difficulties. Normally never happens, but this was tonight, and of course it would happen on one of the biggest nights. So anyways, like always, if you can download the pod, it's going to be on Apple and Spotify. I'm going to try to get it uploaded tonight up into the morning. So that will be all there. If you missed the whole show, you can watch listen to it on there. And don't forget to follow, rate, comment, like our show. We really appreciate the feedback, and we're trying to grow as this NBA playoffs goes on. And we always ask for it to be as interactive as possible. So as many comments on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram, we appreciate it, and we'll get to throughout the show. Anything else, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, thank you guys. Like with technology, it obviously could be a beautiful thing because it allows us to do this show.
Yep.
But every once in a while, unfortunately for tonight, there's a little bit of a hiccup, and so we'll get that shored up. Appreciate, regardless, the support. You heard the doc. Like, please, follow us on YouTube. Hit the smash the like button. Tell your friends, family, because we're really doing it for everyone. Just talking ball, trying to discuss all these playoff series and give our insight and expertise. So really appreciate the viewership tonight. And so, man, round 2 is started with a bang, and I expect it to continue. And I cannot wait for tomorrow and Thursday's games. And most likely we'll be on Thursday night, I think.
We'll be on Thursday night after the end of that Warriors Minnesota game. So again, if you haven't followed our pages, subscribe, and remember, we'll be on again on Thursday. The Hoops Rehab Show is always ready to roll. So the Hoops Rehab team is out, and good night on a Tuesday night. Peace out.
All right, y'all. Good night. Appreciate it.